This video is brought to you by Instant Gaming. I've been buying the majority of my games here for the past couple of months now. If you're not familiar, Instant Gaming is a website where you can find really good sales on some of the hottest titles in gaming, sometimes even up to 80 or 90% off retail price. They've got a huge catalog to choose from. I've even bought Steam and Nintendo gift cards from there and they work great. I can highly recommend checking them out. They've also partnered with me to host a giveaway where you can choose any game of any price on their website if you win. Next winner is going to be chosen around the end of this month. Check out my affiliate link to browse their deals and the giveaway link in the description below. Now back to the video. I am obsessed with the idea of Amazon's Lord of the Rings MMO. Ever since I was a kid, I thoroughly enjoyed playing through the single-player and co-op RPGs on PlayStation and other consoles like the Third Age, the Two Towers, and especially Return of the King. I also had so much fun with the RTS battle for Middle-earth 1 and 2, got to experience Lord of the Rings Conquest, which was an absolute treat, and this love for these Lord of the Rings games later evolved when I got introduced to Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War. Mordor was actually the very first game I live streamed on Twitch and later covered on YouTube alongside Shadow of War.
This guy will fall. Trust me.
And I don't think I can ever recapture the amazing experience from beginning to end I had with both games. Try as I might, I absolutely could not get into the Lord of the Rings MMORPG released in 2007, and I tried very hard over the past decade. I felt great passion that it was based in the Tolkien universe, but the gameplay / combat and graphics just could not pull me in no matter how much I tried to look past them. I kept wishing that we could experience this amazing world but with action combat and modern graphics, in MMO form. Fast forward to 2018 to 2019 and I got a first-hand experience with Amazon's New World, firstly back in its original alpha when it was more of a survival sandbox, and later in the alphas, betas, and release of New World we know today. When New World came out in 2021, long story short, it had turned into something I couldn't get behind, so I ended up quitting shortly after, but by then I was already very linked and in tune with the world building and story behind New World, so from then on, and even now, it had become a big part of me. The reason I had even brought this up, by the way, is because Amazon Game Studios, as they were working to develop New World, had announced that they were in partnership with another company to develop a brand new Lord of the Rings MMORPG. This was a couple of years ago, and since then, the project had been cancelled and reopened under a new partnership between Amazon Games and a company called Embracer Group. I made a video about 2 months ago going over this partnership announcement and the mention of the current progress, but I didn't really know at the time who Embracer Group was and why people had new worries about the Amazon Lord of the Rings MMO. So firstly, Amazon Games does have multiple development studios under their belt. The one that's in partnership with Embracer Group, or I should actually say Middle-earth Enterprises and Friends, because they've undergone a bit of a split that I'll outline in a second, is the one located in Orange County, California, who are also responsible for the development of New World. New World has had a lot of ups and downs over the years. Some people have shared high praise behind the team at New World. On the other side of the fence, some people say it's a game that feels like it was developed by a studio that's never played an MMORPG before. Me personally, I stand somewhere in the middle. I've gotten to know the game intimately, the story, the team behind it. I've done interviews with them behind the scenes and spoken with a few of their team members, and I know they had people that were really passionate about the game and its success, but there were also definitely some mistakes made. I will pivot a little bit and say though that I did recently give their new Realms Reborn type of remake called New World Aeternum a try, and I was actually very impressed with the work they put in for the very early game. There were voice line cinematics between Captain Thorpe and Father Russo, which with me knowing the backstory so deeply, I could not help but get super excited, and also the depiction of Isabella was absolutely chef's kiss. I could tell that a lot of tender love and care was going into the story and that they were actually trying to build a strong foundation. But at the same time, I had to think to myself, this open beta test was capped at level 30, and New World's main problems start rearing their heads when you start getting towards the end. Now, of course, I'm not saying that this feeling is going to prevent me from ever trying New World Aeternum after its release, because I don't think that's fair. I should make a new character and try to go from start to finish before making any real judgment. But overall, I think my time with New World is unfortunately at an end, and that I'll never be able to enjoy the game the same way again. And that's where Amazon's Lord of the Rings MMO comes in. Despite the very valid worries towards it, because it's an opportunity to recapture the essence of what a few people call, and I agree with, the golden age of MMORPGs, and the magic of modern and old school Lord of the Rings RPGs, since I believe the game is going to be running on the same engine New World is, and it's based in part of the legendarium created by Tolkien. I was very sad to see that we didn't get any teasers or trailers during the recent Gamescom, but it does seem that the game is still in a very, very early stage based on what they recently said to the press. Around August 22nd, we got another small update surrounding the MMO, and it was said by Christoph Hartmann, who is vice president of Amazon Games, that the project is still in the early stages and chasing the thing which is different to all other games out there. They said that they're still trying to find the hook, which I think is quite interesting because just being a modern MMO set in the Lord of the Rings, or really any part of that universe, including The Hobbit and The Silmarillion, puts you leagues ahead of other games out there, especially in this time period where there's such a drought of fresh experiences in this genre. But at the same time, I also get what they're saying about it being a big IP, and you want to make sure that it's done the right way. I'm sure they're feeling that even more with the public reception towards Rings of Power and the feedback they've been getting from New World, but over this past week or so, I've also been looking into this Embracer group, also known as Middle-earth Enterprises and Friends. I was actually shocked by how much I didn't know about this group Amazon is partnering with, and I'm starting to understand more about why people have worries for not just Amazon's development of the game, but also Embracer Group. Embracer Group is a Swedish video game and media holding company based in, I believe, Karlstad, and it's a massive entity in the gaming industries. They've been comprised of a lot of groups and companies we as gamers would recognize, like THQ Nordic, who had games like Gothic, Darksiders, Kingdoms of Amalur, and Elix under their belt, other companies like Gearbox and Coffee Stain, who are the developers of Satisfactory. Over time, Embracer Group had acquired many of these companies, but it seemed like they had bit off more than they could chew. Because from around June of last year to May of this year, it's said that Embracer Group cut over 4,500 employees, shut down over 40 studios, and canceled over 80 in development projects. The reasoning behind this is said to be related to Saudi Arabia pulling their investment plans out of the gaming market, but on top of this, Embracer Group announced they'd be splitting their company into 3 separate entities. The first group is called Asmodee, and they're a leading tabletop games publisher and distributor with an extensive IP catalog, also including the upcoming Lord of the Rings Duel for Middle-earth board game. The second one is Coffee Stain and Friends, which I'm sure a lot of you will recognize. They'll be retaining popular titles such as Valheim, Deep Rock Galactic, Satisfactory, and 2 that I was surprised to see on the list, Star Trek Online and Neverwinter under Cryptic. They got a lot under their belt too. And finally, Middle-earth Enterprises and Friends. Don't ask me why 2 of these groups have friends at the end, I don't know. Who knows? But they'll of course be retaining the majority of the Lord of the Rings IP, and that's like for video games, motion pictures, but of course they're in partnership with Amazon on Rings of Power, board games, merchandising. As of this time, these guys have the biggest slice of the Lord of the Rings pie. They'll also retain some pretty big franchises like Kingdom Come Deliverance, which I was surprised to see this too, Dead Island 2, Tomb Raider, and it's already been announced that they're working on another Tomb Raider game. They also have Killing Floor 3, Metro, and I'm sure there could be more. Now, as I understand it, the Embracer Group will be retaining the most ownership of Middle-earth Enterprises, and what this kind of tells me is 2 things. The first thing is that with this Lord of the Rings MMORPG, I'm worried that it might have a higher chance of mismanagement or predatory monetization. I'm hopeful that I'm wrong on this, but before Embracer Group stepped into the picture and it was just Amazon Games and Leyou Technologies working on the first iteration of this, it was intended to be a free-to-play game, which in this genre would likely mean tons of microtransactions. I think it's possible that Amazon Games might still be interested in going that route, but hopefully with what they've learned from New World and how the MMORPG community is tired of excessive microtransactions in these games, they'll exercise extreme caution. Now, this project was already cancelled once before, so I don't think it's completely impossible for it to happen again, but I'm less worried about it happening because either company has run out of money. Amazon Games, despite the lows they've experienced, is still a subsidiary of a titan like Amazon, and Embracer Group, from what I was able to gather from one of the recent profit meetings, has been making a lot of money, and some of which didn't even get reported because it was tied to a multi-year deal they made with Amazon for Lord of the Rings. I think MMO-wise, this is probably the only one I'm excited for right now, maybe Chrono Odyssey, and there's some MMO-like kind of games I've been actively following like Towerborn and Fellowship, but for actual MMOs/MMORPGs, I don't have a lot to look forward to. I hope it does well, but I still haven't and don't think I will end up backing Ashes of Creation. I have very little to no interest in Throne and Liberty. I'd like to check out New World Aeternum like I mentioned before, but I don't see myself sticking with it for very long because of the reasons I said before. I am excited for Light No Fire though. That one I'm very curious to see how it turns out, but who knows, I could be forgetting something or an unknown title could pop up as well. In the meantime, I'm probably going to start finding random topics to talk about related to this MMO, something to keep me preoccupied with the wait like I did with New World, but let me know what you guys are thinking so far about the game and its future. I'm curious to hear from others that tried New World Aeternum recently and if it gives you hope for the Lord of the Rings MMO and what you think about Embracer Group. Thanks so much for watching and have a wonderful night or day, folks. Farewell.